I'm so excited to be here, everyone, to be able to geek out around influencer marketing and the creator economy. It's a really hot topic right now. This last year, I believe just in the US, over $5 billion was invested into startups in the creator economy. The year before that, it was around $450 million. So there's a lot of momentum that's happening in this space. And then, but why is influencer marketing so important when it comes to the creator economy? Is because 68% of creators and influencers make more money with brand deals and brand collaborations than anything else. And so this is a really fast-moving industry. It's exploding. And we're going to talk about why there is room and why it's important for automation in order to push this industry forward. And so we're going to go into some really bold statistics real quick. One reason why there needs to be automation is because 90% of the globe are skipping advertising. And so there's an ad avoidance at an all-time high. For example, 47% of the globe have ad blocking technology. And I would say that's a very conservative number, especially in developed countries. 46% of Americans are using private browsing, and that's happening across the globe as well. But then also, there's a huge growth around non-ad supported platforms. So Netflix is bigger than the top five cable networks in the US and in the European areas. And so is Amazon Prime. And these exploding platforms don't provide advertising. Now, even though consumer habits have changed, there's way more time being spent, over 3 hours a day on average being spent on social media a day. And there's a steady decline with television. And also, we're seeing this era of decentralization. There's more content than ever before. Tens of millions of videos are being uploaded every day, and as humans, our minds can't compute this. It's impossible for us to organize all of this unstructured data and all of this content. And we mentioned how big Netflix is compared to the top 5 cable networks. Well, look at YouTube. 82% of the views on YouTube are from content creators and influencers. That's much bigger than Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Disney, and all of TV combined is a small fraction of YouTube. Now, that doesn't include TikTok. That doesn't include all the meta platforms. And that doesn't include the 150 plus relevant video platforms in China. So there's a lot of decentralization happening, and I'm betting on that there's going to be a decentralization of platforms as well. However, not enough people are talking about this. And so even though consumer habits have changed on how they consume content, and by watching content creators and by skipping ads as well as having ad blocking technologies, there's still $700 billion being spent on media, and it's mainly traditional media. So why is this a problem? Well, it's obvious that not a lot of companies and advertisers are following the data. And that data, is needing to prioritize this decentralized world of content with content creators, which there's over now 50 million self-proclaimed content creators and influencers. So why? Well, brands have a hard time herding cats. Working with celebrities, creators, and influencers is very difficult. And then it's also very difficult to do product placement on the major SVOD platforms like Netflix and Amazon. So how do we automate the creator economy and influencer marketing? Well, it sounds cliche, but AI. It's the only way to do it, is to have technology that can learn like a human, but can scale like a machine, that can truly learn nuances of high-touch situations to help scale. So this is something that a lot of companies have tried doing in the last several years. Companies like Google, ByteDance, Meta, as well as over probably 1,000 startups that create a marketplace for creators and brands to be able to collaborate. Well, the issue is all of these different marketplaces are have one downfall, and that's they're designed to be reactive. And so what we are trying to do differently is creating technology that can be proactive, that can truly look at all the data and then figure out how to take these high-touch, nuanced situations and make it so brands in a very proactive way can work with not just a few creators or dozens or hundreds, but actually thousands and tens of thousands. There's this blue ocean of inventory that no one is really tapping into and truly scaling. And so there is going to be a time where brands do work with tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of those 50 million creators that we discussed. And so we've built an AI platform to help brands be much more successful and predictive, where we help over 9 million different creators to be much more data-driven in growing their audiences as well as growing their revenues. And having context on both sides is very important if you want to figure out automation. And we're currently around 30% automated. And our goal in the next 4 years is to be 80% automated. Now, when you do automation, does this mean that creativity goes away? Or that, you're not gonna be able to preserve strong relationships? It's actually opposite than that. Taking out all the nuanced, tedious work and all the guesswork and be able to take things in a much more scientific direction to be able to know which outcomes are gonna be happening makes it so both creators and brands can be much more focused on relationships, as well as much more focused on creative, instead of all the other busy work that comes with it. And so I want to share some of the progress that we have made when it comes to automation in the creator economy and influencer marketing. Discovery, predictability, and training are the three areas that we're going to be talking about. So first, when it comes to our discovery AI, we've been very successful in doing bot detection. There's a large amount of creators that have fake activity. And this isn't meaning fake followers, but actually meaning being able to determine which creators have comments or engagements around their content that is not real or fake. There's been countless times where brands have worked with creators hoping to make sales happen or hoping to see ROI that ended up seeing just a complete flop. Well, it's because they're not looking at all of the data. And so we've been very successful using computer vision and deep learning neural networks to be able to see which of the activity and what percentage of activity of creators, of followers around creators are actually healthy. Because this is very important, not just because of avoiding fraudulent activity, but it's also important in driving ROI or return on advertising spend. There's $1.3 billion being spent every year on fraudulent activity around brands working with creators that have fake engagement. So we all have to level up, get much more sophisticated, become much more data-driven, but also leverage technology that can do what we can't do. Because for us to analyze activity around creator posts when there's millions of comments, etc., that's really hard to accomplish. But it's very possible, and we have AI that's been able to do that. Also, when it comes to image similarity, sometimes brands want to have a strong affinity with a creator, or they like specific type of content. Well, if a brand really likes Mr. Beast, AI can now tell that brand, okay, if you work with Mr. Beast and it's successful, or you want to work with other channels like Mr. Beast, or let's say Huda Beauty, you can then have the AI look at the content, and look at the aesthetics, and look at the affinities, and figure out how to generate a list of 1,000 more creators that have very similar content. And on that same application, also, we provide audience overlap. So you can see which creators are similar to the creators that you like, but also which ones have a similar audience to your brand, as well as to the creators that you're seeing success with. One thing that's really important to remember out of all of this is the data. AI is worthless without strong data. And one thing that's not discussed enough about is all the data out there, and specifically unstructured data. Unstructured data is 90% of the data. And that is literally the content. That's the visuals of the video content. It is the audio, it's the editing, it's the large groups of text. but 9 out of 10 brands are not leveraging unstructured data. Well, why is that an issue? Well, when it comes to the creator economy and influencer marketing, that's 90% of the data, and so most brands are only seeing 10% of the picture. So looking at a spreadsheet, seeing average views and engagement rates, it's not enough, and it's not enough to model success. When we've been able to predict sales on behalf of brands, or be able to help brands increase their click-through rate, the data that's most important is the unstructured data. It's looking at using computer vision and NLP and all the different ways of leveraging AI to truly understand the context of the content and who are going to be the winners and who are going to be the losers. So here's just a couple of examples of where we've leveraged AI and unstructured data. One client called Philo came to us. Philo is an SVOD. It's a live streaming platform owned by AMC, Discovery, and Viacom. And they wanted us to start growing their audience and installs and subscribers on Philo. They at first told us to target men between 18 and 30. Well, what was interesting is as we activated the campaign and started working with different creators and influencers, our AI started giving us a lot of feedback. And the AI was telling us that we needed to actually pivot on who we were focusing on and focus on families and women 30 plus, which is much different than the direction we were given by the brand. As we were given permission to test these other verticals and these other audiences, something amazing happened. As we made the full pivot, we increased the click-through rate by 172% and the conversion efficiency by 10x. And after a couple of years, a total of 20x conversion efficiency. This is science. It sounds magical because there haven't been a lot of breakthroughs of being able to make predictions with video content. But with the creator economy, with influencer marketing, there's now millions of creators, and you can look at a lot of data. And that data really pushes that needle forward. And it's the type of data that advertising's never had because there's not enough of a sample of data that can truly train AI, especially with commercials, where that also lack attribution. Another example is a video game called Apex Legends. We were able to launch their fourth season, and our AI was able to predict 99.5% with accuracy the viewership that we should be expecting. So this means as we worked with these different content creators and influencers, we didn't put any media behind it. We were able to be almost 100% accurate on predicting how many views we're going to get. And so with those that have worked with creators and have worked with hundreds or thousands of creators, you understand how difficult it is to make that type of prediction. There's a lot of variables and different things and nuances you have to look at. And our AI is much more effective than humans, over 25% more effective in predicting views. And so if AI was 10% less effective, that's still scaling. Being that it's now 25% more effective, it's not only scaling, it's thriving. And we actually also launched Apex Legends on their first season. And this is without any context. We worked with over 100 creators, and we were able to predict in the first week over 99.98% of the viewership. So just to give you a comparison, we worked with another platform that also focuses on predictions, and they ended up being close to between 15 and 20 million off. Our AI was only 25,000 off without any training. And so every year it's a little different. There's always different nuances, different trends that happen, but we've been able to consistently keep it above 99%, which is a huge accomplishment. In driving sales, so we're able to predict sales on behalf of Philo, but that's a streaming app. But what about actual products? Well, we work with Nordic Track, which is the biggest competitor to Peloton and has high-end workout equipment. We were able to see consistently, even today, we see a 3x return on ad spend on a consistent basis. So this isn't just predicting views or predicting clicks, but it's actually predicting sales and it's scaling. And this is, one of the top performance marketing companies out there that have pivoted a lot of their resources over to influencer marketing. So We are literally seeing the tip of the iceberg. We have 50 million plus creators that exist out there. Only 1% of them are above the poverty level. And so many brands are good at working with big creators, but that is thinking really small. How do you build a sales channel with millions of creators that becomes stronger every month that you're working on the campaign or on the project? Brands must start investing in automation. And advertisers and brands must invest not just in automation, but also attribution. When you figure out attribution and you figure out how to leverage AI and AI tools, it's game-changing what's possible. And that $700 billion that we talked about that's being spent on media every year, as this increases and infrastructure is bigger, it's gonna shift over to this industry really fast because people are avoiding advertising and consumers are watching creators more than they are television or any other type of content. So end-to-end automation is the goal. And we're really excited about that. We're 4 years away from 80%. If I was lying, I would say that we're at 100% today, but that's impossible. It's very complicated. The next wave of technology is taking very manual, archaic processes and figuring out how to make them turnkey and how to make them scalable. And Hollywood and entertainment has been a category that has been very difficult to scale. But we're really excited, at least from this angle, we have figured out the pathway of automation. So this is something that's going to continue to revolutionize entertainment, media, and advertising. But something that I get really excited about is that we're seeing a historic moment today. We talk about decentralization. There are more artists now that's making a living than the history of this planet's ever seen. We are seeing the power, the era of the artist. Artists are now in power, and we're just seeing the very beginning of it. And why is that important? It's because art preserves history, art preserves culture, art preserves data, and we can learn from art. And so it's really exciting that, I've been doing this for 15 years, and we're still at the very beginning. It's still the new world of entertainment and media. But there's going to be a lot more that happens. And these creators are going to launch their own brands. They already are, and they're already competing with bigger companies. But it's a perfect time for companies to try to get in with these creators as they're growing, as they're trying to figure out, how to grow their audiences, and not just work with the top creators, but to work with the creators that are struggling, that are high growth, but maybe not monetizing as well. Because this is a chance for brands not just to advertise, but to lead with consensus, with trust, but also empower the artists to create art, which is one of the best things that you can do for humanity, in my opinion. Thank you so much.